This is proof number 5 from the chapter 3 review. If you take a look here, they tell me that I have circle P, so that's the center of the circle, and PR bisects angle KPM. I'm trying to prove that PR is a median of this triangle. So if you think about the definition of median, you know that the median is a line segment, goes from a vertex of a triangle to the midpoint of the opposite side. Or in our textbook, we can say that it divides the side to which it is drawn into two congruent segments if we want to shorten it down a little bit. So the key here, I need to get these two segments congruent to each other. And I think I have congruent triangles. So if I can show the two triangles congruent, I know those segments are congruent, then I'm going to be able to show that I have a median. All right? So a couple things here. I've got radii of a circle. So I know that PK is going to be congruent to PM. So I will go ahead and list that. PK congruent to PM, and that's because all radii of a circle are congruent, all right? And I also have an angle bisector here. It's KPM, so these two angles are going to be congruent because of the angle bisector. So I could say that angle KPR is congruent to angle MPR. And that, of course, is going to be that if an angle is bisected, then it is divided into two congruent angles. All right? Last thing here to get the two triangles congruent. PR is congruent to itself by the reflexive property, so we have that. And now the two triangles are going to be congruent. We've got a side angle side relationship there. So we've got triangle, we're going to say PKR is congruent to triangle, let's see, if it's PKR, it's going to be PMR. And that is by the side angle side rule. So got that. Do check and make sure you've got three congruent statements. I've got these two sides congruent, I've got those two angles congruent, and I've got those two sides congruent. You may even want to label those off to the side just to show that you've got those included. Now that these are congruent, remember we're trying to show that PR is a median. So we've got to get these two segments congruent because the median goes to the midpoint of the opposite side. So I can say that KR has the same length as RM, or mark those some way. That's because they're corresponding parts of congruent triangles. So KR is congruent to KM, and that's because corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, all right? And the final step here, number 8, I want to say that PR is a median, okay? That's what they were asking me to show here. PR is a median. And really important here, if they give you a median, you can basically just take whatever from that you want, which is usually going to be the congruent segments. If you're trying to show that you have a median, you need to meet the whole definition. So a median goes from a vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side of a triangle. Now my proof doesn't say that I have a midpoint, so we might want to use the other wording. It's a segment that connects a vertex. It's a segment from a vertex of a triangle that divides the opposite side into two congruent segments, something like that. So we could say if a segment, and it's got to be from the vertex of a triangle, divides the opposite side into congruent segments, then it is a median, okay? And again, it's kind of a weird wording. Again, if you don't like that, you could do an extra step. You could say that R is a midpoint because it divides the segment into two equal segments. And an easier wording for the median then would be to say if a segment connects a vertex of a triangle to the midpoint of the opposite side, it's a median. Nothing wrong with that, but it would be an extra step, okay? So the statement, a little bit tough. It's if a segment from the vertex of a triangle divides the opposite side into congruent segments, or sometimes the book will say divides the side to which it is drawn into congruent segments, then that segment's a median, okay? But it's got to go from the vertex and divide the opposite side into two congruent segments. So hopefully that helps with problem number 5.